Hey, and welcome back to the English Coffee Talk Show. I'm Eva, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. This show is all about helping you feel more confident and comfortable with your everyday English. And today, we have a really great episode lined up for you. But first, James, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Eva. I'm doing great, honestly. Well, okay, I'm doing great now. My weekend was a little bit of an adventure, not always in a good way.
Oh no. Okay, you have to tell me everything. What happened?
So, you know how I've been trying to be more adventurous? I decided to try this fancy new coffee shop near my apartment. Chalk menu, plants everywhere, soft jazz playing, the whole sophisticated vibe.
Oh, I love those places.
Right, lovely. Except I had no idea what half the drinks were. Cortado, flat white, macchiato, the real tiny Italian kind, not the Starbucks kind. So I decided to order a cafe au lait. It sounded fancy and doable.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So I get to the front and I confidently say, I'll have a cafe au lait. The barista blinked at me and said very kindly, oh, you mean a cafe au lait? And the guy behind me in line gave a quiet little chuckle. My entire face turned red.
No way. Oh, James, that is so relatable. That has happened to me more times than I can count. And honestly, those little awkward moments connect perfectly to what we want to talk about today.
Today's episode is all about how to speak better at work in English. If English isn't your first language, the workplace can feel intimidating. Meetings, feedback sessions, small talk, all of it requires specific English that nobody teaches in a classroom. So today, Eva and I are sharing practical, real-world tips you can start using this week.
Exactly. We'll share personal stories, break down vocabulary, and give you phrases you can use right away. Whether you're new to an English-speaking workplace or just sometimes feel unsure, this episode is for you. Okay, let's jump in. Tip number 1, the power of active listening at work.
Oh, this is a great one. We tend to think of communication as speaking, but listening is half of it, maybe more. Active listening is a specific skill. It means you're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You're genuinely engaged with what the other person is saying and showing them you're paying attention.
Right, and there are concrete ways to show it. Nodding, maintaining natural eye contact, and then paraphrasing when they finish, restating what they said in your own words. So what you're saying is, or if I understand correctly, you mean, it makes such a difference in how people feel talking with you.
Totally, and asking follow-up questions shows genuine engagement. I have an embarrassing story about this. Early in my career at a marketing company, we had a big team meeting, 12 people around a table, going through a project plan about who was responsible for what and when things were due. I was only half listening, mentally composing an email, and also debating whether to take a second donut. So when the manager said, James, you'll take the lead on the client presentation, I looked up and confidently said, absolutely, sounds great.
Oh no, you had no idea what you just agreed to, did you?
Zero idea what I'd agree to. 2 days later, my manager emailed asking how the slides were coming along. The presentation was due in 3 days, and I hadn't started. I worked through the whole weekend. It was exhausting and stressful, and it could have been avoided if I'd just been actively listening.
I've been there, that feeling of nodding along and then going home wondering, wait, what did I just agree to? It's so common. And remember, even when you are listening carefully, it's always okay to ask a clarifying question. No one thinks less of you for it. In fact, it shows professionalism.
Exactly. Now, I always paraphrase and ask follow-up questions in every meeting. Something like, just to confirm, you need the presentation by Thursday, and it should cover the last 2 quarters? That one sentence would have saved me an entire weekend of stress. Let's go through our vocabulary for this tip.
First phrase, follow up. To follow up means to check back on something after an initial conversation or meeting. I'll follow up with you by email to confirm the details. Or, can you follow up with the client about their feedback? As a noun, I'm sending a follow-up email, or let's schedule a follow-up meeting. Very common in professional settings.
Next, touch base. This means to briefly connect or check in with someone. Let's touch base at the end of the week. Or, I just wanted to touch base about the project timeline. It's a warmer, less formal way of saying, let's communicate, used constantly in American English offices and emails.
And third, on the same page. Everyone has the same understanding of a situation. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about the deadline. Or, before we move forward, let's get on the same page about the deadline. It confirms mutual understanding, and it's incredibly useful whenever things feel unclear or confusing in a meeting.
Great phrases. Okay, tip number 2. This one is really important for ESL learners specifically because it involves a big cultural difference in how English speakers give feedback. Tip 2. How to soften constructive feedback professionally.
In many cultures, direct feedback is efficient and respectful. If something isn't right, you say so clearly. But in English-speaking workplaces, the US, Canada, UK, and Australia, there's a strong preference for softening criticism with indirect language. Saying bluntly, "this report is bad," can feel shocking or even rude here, even when the intention is just to be helpful.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. That's clear, direct feedback.
But my colleague looked genuinely hurt. Later, a mutual colleague said, "The way you gave that feedback felt a little harsh." I was mortified. I apologized, explained where I was coming from culturally, and we had a really good conversation. After that, I completely changed how I give feedback.
That takes real emotional intelligence to apologize and learn from it. So, how would you give that same feedback differently now?
Completely differently. Now I'd say, "I really love the research you've put into this. The data's impressive. I'd suggest rearranging some sections to make the flow clearer for the audience. Have you considered putting the summary at the beginning? With a few small tweaks, this is going to be really strong." Same message, structure needs work, but it feels collaborative and encouraging.
What Eva just used there is called the sandwich method. Start with something positive, that's the top piece of bread, put the critique in the middle, the filling, end with something positive or encouraging, the bottom piece of bread. Positive, critique, positive. A simple framework that makes feedback so much more comfortable to receive.
Two key phrases. For example, I'd suggest adding more detail here. And have you considered, for example, have you considered changing the font? Both invite the other person to reflect on the idea rather than feeling told what to do. Combined with the sandwich method, this is constructive criticism, feedback that is specific, helpful, and framed to support growth.
Constructive criticism. Write that one down. Knowing how to give and receive it gracefully separates someone competent from someone truly great to work with. All right, tip 3. How to speak up confidently in meetings. This one is for anyone who's ever had something important to say in a meeting and didn't say it.
This one hits close to home. It's one of the most common fears for ESL learners in the workplace. Meetings move fast. People use idioms and slang, and you're processing all of it while figuring out what you want to say. By the time you've worked out how to phrase your thought in English, someone else has moved on. So you stay silent, and you go home thinking, "I should have said that."
Exactly.
I remember one meeting very clearly. We were brainstorming for a new campaign, and I had a strong idea, but I kept hesitating. What if I phrased it wrong? What if my grammar was off? So I stayed quiet. 10 minutes later, a colleague said almost exactly the same idea. Everyone loved it, and I sat there thinking, "That was mine. I had it first." And I said nothing.
I've been on the other side of that. About 3 years into my career, we were in a strategy meeting going in a direction I felt would create problems. But I said, "I'd like to jump in here. I want to raise a concern about the timeline. I think we're underestimating the production phase." The room went quiet. Then my manager said, "That's a really good point, James. Let's look at that."
Oh, wow. That must have felt amazing.
It felt incredible. And honestly, it wasn't that my idea was the most brilliant thing ever said. It was that I spoke up clearly and professionally. After the meeting, a senior colleague came up and said, "Good catch. Just 2 words. But people respect you when you speak up thoughtfully. They don't expect perfect grammar. They expect good ideas and honest engagement."
Yes, and the key is having a few set phrases ready so you're not trying to invent the perfect sentence on the spot while nervous. First phrase, "I'd like to jump in here." This politely signals that you want to add something to the conversation. It's assertive, but not rude. You're letting people know you're about to speak, which is very important in group settings.
Next, to have the floor. It means it's your turn to speak. You have everyone's attention. James, you have the floor. And when you're speaking and don't want to be interrupted, say, "If I can just finish this thought," it signals to others to wait until you're done.
To piggyback on that idea means to build on something someone else just said. Instead of starting from scratch, connect your point to what's already been said. A great meeting strategy. Example. I want to piggyback on what James said. The timeline concern is connected to the budget, so maybe we should review both. It's collaborative and shows you were listening.
2 more phrases. To circle back means to return to a topic later. Let's circle back to that in our next meeting. And to take this offline means to have a private conversation rather than discussing in front of the full group. I think we should take this offline and discuss it one-on-one. Both are used constantly in professional English.
Here's my final encouragement on this tip. Nobody expects you to be perfect in meetings. Native English speakers make grammar mistakes, say and trail off mid-sentence. Your colleagues care about your ideas and your willingness to engage, not perfect grammar. So please, speak up. Your voice matters and your perspective is valuable.
So well said, Eva. Okay, we have one more tip, and it's one people often underestimate. Tip 4. Small talk at work. Why it actually matters. For a lot of English learners, small talk is actually harder than technical or professional conversation. What do you talk about? How long should it last? What if there's a pause? It can feel really awkward.
A lot of people think small talk is just filler. But here's the truth. Small talk at work is how relationships are built and trust is established. It's how you go from being a person who works here to someone my colleagues actually know and like. Those relationships matter hugely for opportunities, support, and belonging.
I have a story to illustrate this. There was a colleague at my old job, a guy named Marcus, in a different department, so we didn't have much professional overlap. But whenever we passed in the hallway, we'd stop for a quick chat. How was your weekend? Did you catch the game? Are you trying the new lunch place? Nothing deep, nothing important, just friendly, casual conversation.
Those little moments add up, don't they?
About a year in, I mentioned to Marcus that I was looking for a new project. He said, "My department is starting something new. We could use someone with your background. Let me put in a word." He did, and I got onto an amazing cross-department project that genuinely boosted my career, all from 30-second hallway chats. That's the power of small talk.
I love that story. Okay, vocabulary for small talk. First, break the ice. To do or say something that makes a conversation feel more comfortable at the start, especially with someone you don't know well. I brought donuts on my first day to break the ice. Or someone might tell a quick joke at the start of a meeting to break the ice and put everyone at ease.
Next, catch up. To share news and updates with someone you haven't spoken to in a while. We should grab coffee and catch up sometime. It's warm and friendly and signals genuine interest in the other person rather than just being polite out of obligation.
Here's a useful nuance. In American English, "how are you" is often just a greeting. The expected answer is simply, "good, thanks." But "how's everything going?" or "how have you been?" signals deeper, genuine interest. It's an invitation to share something real. So if you want a more meaningful connection with a colleague, try "how's everything going?" It opens the door.
Safe small talk topics at work. Weather, weekend plans, food and restaurants, sports, and recent company events. Topics to generally avoid: politics, religion, money, and anything too personal until you know someone well. Keep it light and positive, and you'll be absolutely fine.
All right, friends, we're coming up on the end of today's episode. Let's do a quick recap. Tip 1, practice active listening at work. Paraphrase, ask follow-up questions, and make sure you're all on the same page. Key vocabulary: follow up, touch base, and on the same page.
Tip 2, soften feedback professionally with indirect language. The sandwich method and phrases like "I'd suggest" and "have you considered." That's constructive criticism, being kind and collaborative.
Tip 3, speak up in meetings. Use "I'd like to jump in," piggyback on that idea, circle back, Take this offline and have the floor. Your ideas are worth sharing, even if your English isn't perfect.
Tip 4, invest in small talk. Break the ice, catch up with colleagues, ask, how's everything going? Those little moments of connection build real relationships that can shape your career. And to you, our listener, learning a language is one of the most courageous things a person can do. You are communicating in a language that isn't your mother tongue. Give yourself credit. It's hard, and you are doing it.
You really are. And the mistakes, the cafe omelet moments, the meetings where you stayed quiet when you wanted to speak, those aren't failures. Those are chapters in your story. Every one of those moments makes you better and more resilient. It takes time and showing up every day. The fact that you're here listening and learning, that is genuinely something to be proud of.
If you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you're listening. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. Every new episode will come straight to you automatically, so you never miss one.
And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It takes less than 30 seconds, but makes a huge difference in helping other English learners find the show.
And finally, do you have a friend, classmate, or coworker who is also learning English? Share this episode with them. Learning together is always more fun, and you can even practice today's vocabulary and phrases with each other.
All right, that's a wrap for today's English Coffee Talk show. Such a great conversation, Eva. I hope everyone is leaving feeling more prepared and confident about communicating at work.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Keep practicing, keep showing up. Every conversation you have in English is a step forward. See you next time. Take care, everyone.
Take care, and go get yourself a coffee. Just maybe practice the pronunciation first. I'm James, and we'll catch you next time on the English Coffee Talk show. Bye for now.